My guest had a 12-year Major League career with 4 National League clubs. He was a 3-time All-Star, a member of the 1971 World Champion Pittsburgh Pirates. Dave Cash, thanks for taking some time to talk about life in baseball.
Thanks, Joe. Nice to be here.
By the way, you guys are so smart, professional athletes. You live in Florida and all these warm areas. Why don't you live up north where it's cold all the time in the winter?
Joe, that's where I was born. I was born and raised in Utica, New York, just east of Syracuse. I witnessed some real bad snowstorms, and had an opportunity to go to spring training when I was with the Pirates, and it was always nice and warm in January and February, so I figured after I finished playing, that's where I want to be in the wintertime. In the summertime, I like the Northeast.
Let's talk about growing up, what life was like. You know about today, so many parents are crazy in Little League about their kids. They're going to get a college scholarship. They're going to go pro. They're making these decisions at 9, 10, 11 years of age. What was it like for you growing up?
Brought up Joe in the project. My dad worked in the foundry. My mom was a housewife, but took care of the family. And it wasn't easy. It was never a situation where we didn't have enough to eat, stuff like that. But life wasn't that great either. So it was kind of tough back in the 50s and 60s. And, there's a lot of racism and stuff like that. So times are pretty hard. But I had always had baseball to fall back. I always liked to play baseball. Jackie Robinson was a big influence in my career or in my life. Some of the things that he had to go through, I experienced as well. So growing up in Utica, New York, I had a chance to actually develop my skills. I was actually blessed with the athletic ability to play the game, put it that way, because you have to have the talent to start out with. You have to be blessed with the talent to start out with, and then it's up to you to perfect that talent. My mother said, I don't care whatever you do, don't ever let anybody outwork you. That was one of my main things as far as getting ready to play at the highest level.
So at what age did you feel that you had the ability to play at a higher level?
Well, it wasn't until I actually got into high school and actually seen, the upper level in as far as you can go in school is concerned. I could compete with those guys, and I feel I had a chance, but I wasn't quite sure. I got drafted in 1966 for the Pirates, and I went off to Virginia, being away from home for the first time, going down south for the first time. It wasn't pretty, put it that way. But thankfully, I had my parents who gave me support and helped me out to get through a lot of those trying times that I had to endure. But it wasn't easy, put it that way. I realized I could compete, after I played in the high school level, and I was looking forward to going to the minor leagues to see what I can do there.
The Pirates brought you up in 1969. What do you remember about the call-up and then the short amount of time you spent with them in that first season?
I'll tell you, I was in Columbus, Ohio. I'll never forget that. I was with the Columbus Jets, the AAA club. I got a call from my manager at the time, Don Hope, who was a former third baseman with the Pirates. He called me in the office. He said, Dave, I got some good news and got some bad news. I said, well, I thought they were going to release me or send me home somewhere. So I said, okay, let me have the bad news. He said, the bad news is you're no longer going to be on this team. And I said, what? He said, the good news is you have to report to Pittsburgh tomorrow. And I said, well, what about my hose and moving out of the apartment and stuff like that? He said, don't worry about that. You got an off day on Monday. Danny said that he'll let you drive back to Ohio, pick up your stuff, because on Tuesday they fly to the West Coast. So I had to move along in a hurry. I was so excited. I didn't know, what to do, what to expect. And I just jumped in the car and drove to Pittsburgh. Matter of fact, I was there for the afternoon game.
Now, we know that the Internet doesn't lie. Everything on the Internet is true, but it says that you, against the Mets, you were a pinch runner. That was your first Major League appearance. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. I didn't get my first hit until I played against the Phillies. I was brought up in September, and I had a chance to, like you said, pinch run, but I didn't get a chance to swing the bat.
Matter of fact, Woody Fryman was the pitcher.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I played with Woody when I signed with the Expos, with Montreal. Woody was our closer, and I played against him when he was with the Phillies.
You were with a club that had a tremendous amount of talent. I guess, the good news was you're with a bunch of guys who won the 71 World Series, but on the other hand, eventually it led down to you being traded, but you were sort of fighting for playing time, weren't you?
Well, I had a military obligation that probably a lot of people didn't realize. I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps. I had to leave 2 days every month of the season, and then 15 days in July I had to go to summer camp. So I missed a lot of games during that 6-year period. And it wasn't until I got traded and go to Philadelphia that my military obligation was fulfilled, and I had a chance to play every day. I tell you, I cried when I left Pittsburgh. I mean, because, I was with a bunch of guys that could play. We had just won a championship the previous years before that. I was really disappointed when I got traded. It was a blow to me. And there again, my parents, I had them to fall back on, and they told me, hey, if you want to play the game, you got to make the adjustment. Life is not easy. I mean, it's not like you expect sometimes. That if you want to play the game, you got to pick it up, go play with the team that traded for you, and see what happens after that. And thank God I was able to play with the Phillies. I left Pittsburgh in tears, put it that way.
Going back to Roberto Clemente, who was just a tremendous ball player and individual, speak about what type of person he was, and then, of course, all of us were just hit by his death, and what was that like for you and your teammates?
Yeah, it was a total shock to all of us. Roberto was one of the leaders on the team. There was Roberto, Willie Stargell, and Bill Mazeroski. And those were the three veterans on our ball club that gave us a lot of inspiration, a lot of leadership. And when we lost him, it was just a tremendous blow. The next season in '73, we went down, but we lost. We didn't play as well. It was just one of those things. Because Clemente was the heart and soul of our ball club. He had been to the dance before. He had been to the World Series in '60, and what he did in '71 was incredible. So it was a total shock to hear that everybody on the team, that we had lost one of our leaders. It hurt, put it that way. It just didn't seem the same. On opening day, it didn't seem the same without him in right field.
You were playing before free agency. Eventually you became a free agent. But back then, what was it like contract negotiations-wise? I've heard stories about guys who would hit 300 and wound up, they got the same amount the next year, or they had their salary cut. What about for you?
Well, that happens a lot. I mean, that's back then you didn't have any way of negotiating or being a free agent at the time, so you had to sign the club that negotiated with you. If not, you don't play. The owners had power over the players at the time. They had no freedom. And then when free agency came along, it gave players the opportunity to move and play with teams that wanted them. So free agency was a blessing to the players, put it that way, because it really gave them some freedom to move and go to clubs where they could possibly win a championship.
74, 5, and 6, you're with the Phillies, you were an all-star, and then you chose free agency. Why that decision? Were the Phillies interested in you at all?
Well, in '75, I led the National League in hits. I had 213 hits. That's more hits than anybody in the National League or the American League that year. We were negotiating the contract, and, I couldn't get signed for the '76 season. So I played the '76 season for what I got paid for in '75. I didn't get a raise. I didn't get cut, but I didn't get a raise. In '76, we went through negotiations that we're battling for a pennant. And I decided, well, come January, there's not going to be any more negotiations. I'm going to concentrate on trying to win this division or help win this division for Philadelphia. So that's what happened. We won the division in '76, and me and the Phillies couldn't come to terms on a contract. So I chose to go free agent. I ended up signing with the Montreal Expos.
You were with them 77, 78, and 79. Playing in Canada, how much different was that than playing in the States?
Fan-wise, there was no difference. I mean, they were used to winning in Montreal. They had the Montreal Canadian hockey team were perennial Stanley Cup owners. They know what winning was all about. We had a formidable team. I think if we'd have stayed together a little bit longer, we could have did some serious damage. Playing up there I loved it. I mean, I had a ball. I mean, they accepted me as if I had been playing there for the last 10 years. And the people were great. Matter of fact, I got the first hit in the Olympic Stadium, 1977, off of Steve Carlton. It was fun playing up there. Montreal's an exciting, unbelievable city of multicultures, different languages, different people. It's like going to the UN. I mean, there's all kinds of people in Montreal. I tell you, I had an incredible experience there.
1980, you're with San Diego. You're batted .227. What's going on there?
Well, I didn't play much in San Diego. I guess they thought I was getting too old at the time. I was only like 32, but I didn't get much playing time. We didn't agree with some of the managerial moves that were being made, and it just didn't work out. As a matter of fact, the game was not fun anymore. When I got to San Diego, it just wasn't fun anymore. And we had some talented group of guys there, but every place I went to, we never seemed to stay there longer than 3 years. So I got there, you build a club, and then once you get to the top, they trade you away or you can't negotiate a contract. So in 1980, after the 1980 season, I just figured I called it quits. Like I said, it wasn't fun anymore. And I thought it was time in my life to move on to something different besides baseball. I mean, baseball had given me a lot of opportunities, and I blessed the game, and I left on good terms. I left healthy, feeling good about myself.
A lot of guys have a tough time dealing with life after baseball, so you think you adapted really well?
Oh, yeah, because my mother always told me there's life after baseball. And one of the things that I did a lot, even while I played, was I fished a lot. I fished all over the state. Any place that there was some water, I tried to throw my line in. That gave me some solitude. Got away from the game, had a chance to relax a little bit, and not worry about the game. I had given all I could, and every team that I played with, I think I made a contribution. And that's all you can do. When you're part of a team, you do your part. The next guy does his part. Everybody do their part, and then you have a chance to win.
You got involved in coaching. How different is coaching as compared to playing? And did you see things while you were coaching that you didn't realize as a player that's so much different?
Well, I think when I first started coaching, I was a little too tough on the guys. I was really hard, and I had to soften up the blow a little bit because I expected everybody to be as good as I was. And my expectation for them was just too high at the time. I had to dial that back to learn how to coach in the minor league. Because in the minor league, even though you're managing and coaching, it's not about winning. It's about development in the minor leagues. Your job is to make that player better so he can move to the next level. But in the big leagues, it's all about winning it.
Would you change anything about your baseball career?
Well, I think the only thing that I would probably change is if I had to do it over again, I wish I could have played that stretch from 1967 to 1973 without a military obligation. It cost me a lot of games, but that's what it was. And to serve my country, I'm proud of that. I'm proud I was a part of being in the United States Marine Corps. Like I said, I was in the reserves, and I had a chance to at least be a part of the game.
You look at the game today, and what do you like and not like about today's game?
I like the enthusiasm that guys have, the celebrations and the things of that nature. Guys being themselves. Back where we were playing, that they would do some of the antics that they do now, man. If somebody would have stuck the ball in the back of their ribs, you can't do that now. You can't pitch close to hitters anymore. In other words, the intimidation factor is no longer there. Because if you hit a guy now, or you hit him more than once, you're going to be thrown out of the game. Back when we played, you can get hit 4 or 5 times and they wouldn't throw you out of the game. That in that regard has changed. There's also at second base. When we played, the coach told you break up 2. That meant take the second baseman or the shortstop out on a ground ball to break up the double play. They don't break up the double play anymore. This doesn't happen. They make you slide into the bag, and you have to be on 3 feet on either side. When we played, and they come across the bag, rolling blocks and everything else. Well, you get disqualified for that now.
You look back at your baseball career. Can you relate a funny or bizarre story?
Yeah, I got one. Vic Dabalillo. Vic was from Venezuela. Vic used to practice voodoo. And one day, we had just lost about 5 or 6 games in a row. So Vic, with his practice, he thought if he come in and sacrifice this chicken, it would break the spell. and our manager, Danny Murtaugh, would have none of that. He said, you got to get that chicken out of here. We was ready to make that sacrifice because he believed that, sacrificing this chicken would help us break that losing streak. But it was a mess in the clubhouse. The guys were laughing. It was unbelievable. It was chaos. Right in the middle of a pennant race. But that's the kind of club that we had. We had guys from all walks of life, and you never know what was going to happen when they walked through that door of the clubhouse.
You had some real characters. Doc Ellis was another guy with curlers in his hair, and the 70s were a very turbulent time, as were the 60s, and you guys were part of that. It's a great learning experience, wasn't it, being with different guys?
Oh, yeah. They got on Doc about wearing curlers in his hair, but they didn't say anything about Joe Pepitone when he put the curlers in his hair. It was a big deal when Doc did it, but when Joe Pepitone did it, it was no problem. There was just a double standard, seemed like, once in a while, So we had a group that was talented, but we were respectful, and we were respectful to each other, and we held each other accountable. You messed up. You have to admit that you messed up. Don't blame it on somebody else. You got to take the blame. If you made a mistake, you have to own up to it. And that's the kind of club that we had. We had leaders that came up through the game like that, and they taught us the same way. I can't say enough for Stargell, Clemente, and Mazeroski, 3 Hall of Famers that not only played physically, but mentally they were there with us as well.
Do you get a lot of autograph requests? You get mail, and then do you get people who say, Dave Cash, there was a guy who played baseball. Are you related to him?
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I moved down, a couple of neighbors came in and they saw somebody standing outside and they said, "Are you Dave Cash?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Can I have your autograph?" Sure, no problem. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice to once in a while for people to respect and honor and recognize what you've done in the past and the contributions that you made, because a lot of people don't realize how hard a work it takes to get to the top. And it even takes more work to stay at the top. That's what guys that have longevity, they find out that early in their career, and they continue to work until they can't work anymore.
Dave, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Remembering the, quote, good old days once again. We'll talk down the road. Enjoy our conversation.
Good enough, Joe. Appreciate the time.